How's it going? Mike here, and this episode of Retro Game Guide is about the Vilva portable monitor. I purchased this off of Amazon a couple of days ago and I've been really enjoying it, but you may be asking yourself, what does a portable monitor have to do with retro games? And I'm glad you asked, because I also purchased a Mr. FPGA recently, which goes hand in hand with this monitor and gives me the ability to play literally several different retro gaming consoles and computers in a single tiny box on the go with this setup. Now, if you don't know what the Mr. FPGA is, the simple explanation is it's newer hardware that emulates all of these different systems, but it does it fundamentally different than software emulation by replicating the individual chips on the motherboard, so it's able to execute code in parallel rather than processing lines of code one after another very quickly. What this means is that the emulation itself is technically more accurate than a lot of software emulators, although I will add that software emulation has gotten quite good for some systems in recent years. The convenience and the ability to have several old computers, which are notoriously fickle at this point, on one system was a major selling point for me, but it's a pretty high barrier to entry in terms of cost and setup. If you're interested more about learning the Mr., I plan on doing a video in the future, but Digital Foundry has a great kind of introduction video on the Mr. that I recommend watching. Anyway, for now, I want to talk about the Vilva portable monitor and showcase a couple of use cases for it, as well as show you what it can do. Let's get to it. Back in the early 2000s, LCD screens were becoming cheap enough that portable screens were released for a few different systems, including the PS1 and the PS2, and that trend continued all the way until the last console generation. But now we have portable monitors like the Vilva V156F1. Now, my box got a little damaged in shipping, but it was packed really well. Taking a look at the back of the box, it's a 15.6-inch screen, includes the portable monitor, smart cover, power adapter, USB-C data cable, USB-A to USB-C cable, mini HDMI cable, and user manual. Features include an ultra-slim design, premium color performance, support for multiple connections, and a lifetime screen guarantee plan. Now let's go ahead and open up the box so we can see what's inside. I have already opened mine and tested it, but I wanted to give you the unboxing experience here. Here we have a protective layer on top, and then underneath we have some printed materials. This first one is a warning to carefully protect your screen because they are extremely fragile. Underneath that we have the Vilva V156F1 manual. Then we've got some different things, customer service QR code there. Another printout here with some different ways that you can connect this monitor to different media sources. And then finally underneath we have kind of a quick start guide here. It's important to note that you can connect this monitor with both the USB-C connection and the mini HDMI cable. Underneath all of that you have the monitor itself. It comes in this protective little plastic bag here. Let me get it out of there. And underneath that, you've got the cables and the power adapter itself. Let's take a look at the included cables. We've got a USB to USB-C. We've got a USB-C to USB-C. A power adapter for a wall outlet. And finally, we have the mini HDMI cable, which I already removed from the packaging. Now here is the monitor itself. It comes in this protective case. You've also got a protective layer on the screen, which I will now remove. Always satisfying. Now this is a good opportunity to talk about one of the things I don't like about this portable monitor, and that is the stand. It is just not very sturdy at all. Even when you can get it to stand up straight, it's at a very kind of awkward viewing angle. It sits up very straight, and I ended up having to bend the back of mine quite a bit to give it more support. On the side here, we have the mini HDMI plug and two USB-C ports. Both of those can supply power to the monitor so that you don't need an external power source. Underneath, we have two small speaker bays, and then on the side here, we have a headphone jack, a USB on-the-go plug, on-screen display toggle, and then finally we have the power on-off and back switch. Here's a side view of the stand to kind of give you an idea of how it sits. Again, the piece that it rests on is not very sturdy, but if you fiddle with it enough, you can get it to stand. I would just use extreme caution and avoid putting it at the edge of like a desk or a table or something like that. Alright, enough about the monitor build itself. Let's go ahead and plug this thing in and see what it can do. Here I'm connecting the mini HDMI cable to the Mr. FPGA, and for power I'm going to be using a USB-A to USB-C cable, with one end going into the Mr. to supply the power and the other into the USB-C connection on the monitor. With this setup, I can avoid using a wall outlet for the monitor and just use the Mr. power supply to power everything. And with that, the setup is ready to go and we are ready to do some portable gaming. Here we are at the front end of the Mr., and to show off this monitor's capabilities, I'm going to go into the arcade core here. So much work has been done on the Mr. arcade core that there are literally hundreds of games now that you can play. I'm going to go with Cadillacs and Dinosaurs since that's one of my favorite Capcom beat-em-ups of all time. I also want to quickly point out that the glow that you see at the top of the monitor there is from my DualShock 4. That is not a problem with the monitor itself. And now with the game fully loaded, you can see how vibrant the colors are. Let's take a moment to go over the on-screen display controls. Tapping up on the toggle switch will activate the brightness controls. Tapping down will activate the volume controls. I'm going to go ahead and turn it all the way up so you can hear the game volume once we get into the game itself. But back to the on-screen display, tapping the toggle in the center will activate it. You've got brightness, contrast, eco mode, sharpness, and dynamic contrast ratio. You have the ability to change the aspect ratio from 4:3 to widescreen, fine-tune the colors, or set a sleep timer, as well as set the signal source, tweak your low blue light setting, or activate AMD FreeSync, which this monitor is compatible with. But enough about the on-screen display. Let's check out some actual gameplay now on the monitor itself. This is a 60 Hz refresh rate monitor. However, you can buy a 120 Hz version for a little extra on Amazon. I also wanted to let you know that I didn't change any of the picture settings. This is all out of the box and I think it looks pretty fantastic. While it is a 1080p display, I think everything really pops here because of the small size of the monitor itself. Most of the monitors and TVs I have now are 4K resolution, but for a small portable monitor, this is about as good as it gets in my opinion. Now, I can already hear some of you saying, this is not really portable gaming, and to that I say, you're right. But for me, it's been pretty convenient to set this up quickly to capture footage or just do some gaming in bed and explore some old computer games. You can technically plug anything in that accepts HDMI, including modified consoles, consoles with HDMI adapters, or even stuff like the Evercade EXP if you want to use it on a larger screen. Lately, I've been into exploring computer games on the Atari ST, the Commodore Amiga, and the Sharp X68000. For me, this is one of the easiest ways to explore these libraries without having to deal with the cumbersome hardware that may or may not work at this point. I want to talk a little about the sound quality of the speakers since I think that's another one of the weak points of this monitor. It practically has no bass frequency and is very tinny sounding compared to something like an iPad. I'm not sure what I was expecting for $80 shipped, but thankfully I rarely need the volume up high enough for it to really bother me. What do you think of the sound? Let's go back to the original portable console. See, it even has a handle and an HDMI adapter, and plug in the GameCube to see how it looks on the Vilva portable monitor. All right, we've got everything plugged in. We're just going to go ahead and power it on. And this GameCube is modded with Pico Boot, so it should load directly into Swiss. And here we go. We're in Swiss, now using the portable monitor. Skip forward ahead a little bit so you can see Super Mario Sunshine in progressive scan. That's 480p on the Vilva. It's kind of an unfortunate name if you think about it. It's a little too close to another word, but at this point they're all made up names anyway on Amazon. They just come from the same factory and they just ship them out with different brand names. But here we are, Super Mario Sunshine in 480p. Here's another way that I've used this monitor recently, the Sega Astro City Mini. This is a neat little mini console that Sega put out a few years back. It's also one of two ways that I know you can legally purchase Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder, the other being the Arcade 1-Up Golden Axe arcade machine. Now, initially I was going to power the monitor off of the Sega Astro City Mini itself, but what I found out was that the Astro City Mini doesn't supply enough power to be able to power the monitor, so I would occasionally just hear noises coming from it, but it wouldn't actually power up the screen. But once I plugged it into the wall, everything worked fine, and as you can see here, this is the Astro City Mini playing on the Vilva portable monitor. And as you can see, it looks great. I'm using a wireless USB Genesis controller instead of the Astro City Mini controls, and it works fine. Finally, because I mentioned it, let's check out Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder. This is a very fun sequel that Sega has pretty much ignored since it released. It didn't even come out on the Sega Saturn, which is absolutely insane to me. But anyway, we're talking about the Vilva portable monitor. So my final thoughts are, for $80 plus tax, especially if you have free Prime shipping, it's a pretty crazy deal for what you get. I mean, there's a lot of cables that are included in the box, including a power adapter, which usually doesn't come with these sort of things. The picture is really nice, and you know, outside of the stand and the poor sound quality, this is an extremely versatile and quality monitor that I can highly recommend to people if this is something that you're into. But anyway, that's it for episode 4. I'll be back next week with a new episode. Until then, take care, have fun collecting, and thanks again for watching.
Don't leave me high and dry.